Poketin King here, back with another Friday night TCG talk. I am joined with RH Infinite Cards,
All right, Jared.
and we're going to be discussing all things Flesh and Blood, the competitive side of the game, the casual side of it, as well as some other TCGs. So we'll start off with, you obviously went to Hartford, I went to Liverpool. They were the back-to-back call-ins basically for the release of Heavy Hitters. Do you want to kind of run through your experience of the call-in in Hartford and how that went for you?
Well, the Calling Hertford, this was the first major Flesh and Blood event I've went to in quite a while. I went to the Battle Hardened in Cincinnati the weekend, well, not the weekend, the month before, because I've been starting to get back into the competitive scene of Flesh and Blood. And the actual event itself for me was fantastic, and I was so happy to see how great of a turnout that happened there, because as we all know, everyone's been a little bit down and out on Fab and everything. But then with the release of Heavy Hitters, everyone's been a little bit more hyped up, and I was very happy to see how well the turnout was. For the calling itself, I'm pretty sure I think there was 423 people in attendance for just the main event, which was great. And then there was a CC event that was there, and wasn't like a Rabble event or anything like that. It was just a regular side event, and it actually sold out entirely because they couldn't
Oh,
fit
wow.
enough people there with all the Magic the Gathering and all the people attending the calling to be able to actually house enough room for everyone to sit down and play CC, so they had to actually cap off the event. If that isn't inspiring enough to hear for Fab, I don't know what it is, honestly. And that aside from this just being an amazing set, that aside too, though, I made day two for the first time ever in a
Oh,
major
wow.
event. So that was very exciting. Unfortunately, I bombed out the next day, but I literally never drafted heavy hitters before, but I had a little bit of sealed
Yeah.
practice. So I think that I won't ever go into a major event like that without having practice into the format like that. But I think that after having my draft experience over the past couple of weeks, I think that I would have definitely made it into the top 16, if not in the top 8, if I were to have actually had at least a couple times drafted. But the whole experience was very great. I met a ton of great people. It was very, very vibrant, and it was just good to see so many people there. And it was good to see you can get a couple of rebels while there too.
Yeah. Yeah, those promos are lovely. I think yeah, the turnout is fantastic, and making day two, I think, in any TCG is an accomplishment. Um Heavy Hitters is a set that I think a lot of people enjoyed the drafting experience side of it. Everyone I spoke to anyway, at least, enjoyed it. It was the first time I'd done anything like that. I'd done one pre-release for Heavy Hitters, but I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. So
Yeah.
um, it was sort of like I went because I wanted to do a pre-release, and it's at my local store, so it was fun. Um, but yeah, I think Hartford had such a great attendance, and to start the year off with an event doing so well is fantastic. Liverpool call in as well did really well. I think the numbers are similar. I'm not 100% sure on the exact numbers for Liverpool, but I know that it was a big turnout. I know that yours was yours at SGC Con or something like that.
SCG Con, yeah, Star City Games.
Yeah,
They're the ones that hosted that. They host the
yeah,
majority of the major Fab events throughout the entire country, except for a couple Battle Hardens, and I'm pretty sure MinMax does, and maybe if one or two other like the Realm games or something like that. SCG does the majority of the heavy lifting for the Fab community and out in the U.S.
yeah. That makes sense. I think for us it's Living Realms. They do most of the events. They're like the biggest store. The Liverpool call-in was great. Really good turnout. It was good to see, as like yourself, with seeing loads of good faces there at the event. I had a lot of fun, honestly, and I think it's been mentioned before in the past, but I think going to events really kind of revitalizes that sort of positivity within the game. I think you're there with the community. I think it's quite hard sometimes when you're not going to events, you're not playing at local armories. I think to kind of sort of just have a distorted view of the game. You can sort of get a little bit negative. But when you go into these events and you're seeing how many people, especially for us, we had people travel from Australia, we had people travel from like Poland, Iceland, we had people from America as well. I know one of the guys from Team Runaways came over and did top 8. So I think I'm not sure. I don't think he did amazingly at Hartford, and he just was like, I want to do top eight. So he flew over the week after and came to Liverpool, which is, that's commitment, and I respect that. I think that understanding of the game. I got one win across the whole weekend, which was what I set out to do. I'm not a sort of competitive player. I don't necessarily take the game seriously in terms of playing. I enjoy the game. It's a lot of fun to play, but I know that there's levels to the game that I will sort of never reach myself. So obviously you did day two, which is a massive achievement. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey into sort of playing the game?
Sure. Actually, I'll actually mention one thing in particular, that's very inspiring with all this too for the Flesh and Blood scene. But I started playing Fab probably about a little over 2 years ago, right shortly after Everfest started. I this was I'll get in, this whole thing happened where a buddy of mine was just visiting town and whatnot, and I met up with him at his hotel. I had a booster box of Yu-Gi-Oh with me. I forget which set it was, but I just literally got back into TCGs at the time, and I was under the fallacy that you could make money by just ripping open boxes all the time. Because in my first box I opened up, I pulled a Starlight Rare, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, which was worth like $500 at the time. I'm like, wow, I just spent $70, made 500, awesome. But I'm going on this Yu-Gi-Oh binge and whatnot at the time, and I'm looking to try to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh since it's been almost a decade since I played the game and whatnot. But my buddy's just opening boxes of Monarch. I'm like, oh, what's this game? He's like, oh, it's Flesh and Blood. You should really check into it. It's really good and whatnot. And I'm looking at the art of the cards, and it's fantastic beyond belief. And so I start googling around, and I find some LGSs around locally that have Flesh and Blood products. I buy a couple boxes. I open it up. I'm just like, wow, this is pretty good. Like the EV on it isn't that bad and everything. Like I'm getting at least a good amount of my money back on every box, and sometimes making a little bit. And before I knew it, I'd spent almost about $5,000 on just ripping boxes. And I was just like, okay. I was just saying to my one friend at the time, I'm like, I better like this game, or else this would be a really funny experience where I
Yeah.
just threw 5K down the drain. And I sit down and I play, and I was so awful. It was hilarious. But like I was playing Icelander, and before Icelander was ever even a thing at all, like this was pre-Uprising, so she didn't have Frost Hex or any of City's Chill or nothing like that. And I don't know if you remember the card, but Pulse I have Dissolved. You remember that card, the defense reaction?
Yeah.
It's the Ice
Yeah.
Earth one. I assumed because she was an ice hero that I could put that in my deck, and didn't realize that you had to be of both talents. And I'm trying to play this defense reaction on my first game, and then the people at the LGS are telling me, no, no, that's not how this works. You can't do this. So I started off just like everyone. Like this game is very complicated, and it takes a very long time to learn to the maximum degree. And so right after that, I decided I'm gonna just go. I heard of an FCG con that was only like 3 hours away at the time, and I was like, all right, that weekend, I decided to go up there and try playing CC for the first time. I'd say there was somewhere between like 40 and 50 people in attendance throughout that weekend for Flesh and Blood. Mind you, this is 2 years ago, and this was just everyone was just playing Magic. Nobody was playing Flesh and Blood for the most part, except for the hardcore devoted people that were already playing it for the longest time, and the community was super ultra friendly, and it was very warming to me and whatnot. So I was just everyone was like as I was playing with Icelander for the first time after all this stuff came out. They're like, oh, teaching me you should probably never block with your frost axes, this and the third and everything. I'm like, okay. And so I keep playing locally and whatnot, and eventually my unfortunately and fortunately at the same time, my box loving opening addiction turned into a point where it's like, oh, I've blown over $50,000 in this game. What do I do with all these cards now? Hmm. Well, I mean, I love this game so much. There's only two LGSs that have it, and I decided to open the third. And I ran an LGS for about roughly about a year long, and and I eventually decided to close up shop. Unfortunately, just because of the fact that unfortunately, just running an LGS on two to three card games is not gonna it's not gonna be profitable enough to sustain you in life.
Yeah.
It it was also like a preemptive decision where I'm like, okay, I shouldn't be. doing this forever without and just running break even at best every month when I used to be an engineer, so I figure might as well go back to that and actually be able to have time to play the game. Because unfortunately, as I opened an LGS, I learned what a fellow local owner had told me. He's like, once you start running a store, you're not going to be that great at the game. You're never going to have time to play and whatnot. And I'm just like, that's not the case. I'll find time while I'm sorting
Yeah.
parts till 3 in the morning every morning.
Yeah.
But as I think I closed my doors roughly about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago at this point, and I decided to actually start playing the game whatnot again. And all of a sudden, it came out of nowhere. Basically, it feels like where I was just using almost every game all the time to now I'm probably sitting at, I'd say on average a minimum like a 70% win ratio
Okay.
but that's like
Wow.
but that's also with me like doing so much trial and error. Like, but the thing about Fab though is that and any pro will tell you this. I wouldn't quite say that I'm pro level yet, even though that some people think I'm getting close to there. The thing is though, you just got to grind like a lot, and
Yeah.
ever ever heavy hitters have dropped what 2 3 weeks ago now at this point. I
Yeah.
think it is some one or the other. I have been now playing a new Reiner deck, and I'm probably at minimum 250 reps into the game, into this game plan right now in
Wow.
three
Okay. Yeah.
weeks. Yeah, so, and we all know how
That's
the
impressive.
CC,
Yeah.
yeah, we all know CC is not a short game, so it's not like that's a small amount of time to just say, oh yeah, a bunch 205-minute games. No, we're talking 20-minute
Yeah.
games minimum. That aside, though, I wanted to discuss one thing about this though. Heavy hitters has definitely changed this game entirely on so many levels for the meta. I think it's balanced the meta to a crazy level where there's nobody sitting on top directly, and there's so many crazy things that can happen in this game now as a result. Like, all right, so question for you: when you think of Reiner, what do you think of, like gameplay wise?
Gambling.
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 All right,
Yeah.
that's a fair response. I've created a Reiner deck that basically is not entirely and mostly not revolved around much gambling whatsoever. And here's the funniest part about it. Hey, guess what my weapon is?
Brute weapons. I'm trying to think. You've got the
His basic one's the
is it the
romping
meat
club.
axe?
Yeah,
Yeah, the romping club's the other.
there's a bunch of them. Um, there's the romping club's the primary one. Mandible claws is KO's primary one.
Yeah.
Ravenous meat axe is the primary for Levi, I'm pretty sure. And then there's all the supplemental ones.
Yeah.
Take, take guess what I'm on, if you can remember it.
You're not on. So you're not. You're probably not using something that's used by most people. Then
No,
I'm assuming.
no, not at all.
What are you using then? So
All right.
I don't. My extensive knowledge of the weapons isn't very good, to be honest.
Okay. I figured it wouldn't be that great. I am using the rock.
Rock. Oh, okay. I did hear people talking about that
Yeah,
because I did end up selling quite a few copies of Rock at one point. And I just didn't understand why.
yeah.
But then people stopped. I think people play tested it and they just didn't get very far and they stopped. But yeah,
I
that's
figured
so
I
you've
figured a way to make it work.
so you've put in 250 reps with is that with just the running the rock, or
Yep,
did
just
you
running the
do
rock
some and
deck.
then check? Okay, and you're looking at about 70% win ratio,
Yeah, I'd say
essentially.
somewhere between like 65 to 70%
Okay.
online and between person and whatnot right now. Um, the thing that enabled this deck to actually work is I don't know if you know the mechanics behind Rock, but it costs 3 to use, and you cannot have any cards in your hand in order to activate Rock. So essentially, you cannot pitch to activate Rock. Well,
Yeah.
there's a very simple solution to this now. Now that heavy hitters came out, there's all these one cost buffs that exist in the deck. I mean, not the deck, the new set. So like lead with
Okay.
speed, lead with power, money where your mouth is, bonebreaker bellow. You name all those, and then there's pre-existing ones like rolling thunder and And then other cards are just like one cost randomly, like Oasis Stress by Dig Up Dinner and stuff like that. The idea behind it is, and you don't do this every turn, mind you. What you'll do is you'll play the game like normal, and then once your tunic hits three, make sure that your hand is positioned so that you only have a blue in hand, and you have some or one other card in hand that's a one cost buff, or you have one of those in arsenal. Play the card, pitch the blue, use tunic, rock for 10 plus.
Okay, interesting. So you reckon you've cracked rock then?
I think I've cracked it to a decent degree. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
though, there gets to be points in the game where it might not be as viable in late game, but throw a couple energy potions there too and whatnot,
Yeah.
and you can have times where you'll just have a zero card hand, and all of a sudden, all right, pass turn to me. Okay, I have nothing in hand, nothing. Pack cracker energy potion, crack tunic, throw a rock at you for 7.
That's interesting because the people that I've spoken to, they're not running Rhino. Like I've not. Most of them are looking at this set and going
Yeah,
Kaio or Kasai, and I think obviously I know people that are running Dorinthia now because she's been buffed with this set, but
yeah.
not heard a person mention Rhino. So that's quite interesting.
So I will say this: KO is still a problem. That is for sure. It is not an easy matchup, and it's probably my most one of my most unfavored matchups. That and possibly Azalea, but actually Kasai's are very easy to run into because a lot of times, if I'm fighting against a Kasai player, I'll just switch over to just doing a lot of just block, 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 block. Okay, two
Yeah,
card 10, and just gonna rinse and repeat cycle until they run out of their high value generation cards like Spoils of War, or if they're not using too many Outland skirmishes or not using Kasai's ability to generate copper and gold. Then I'll switch game plan to going swing big, alpha rampage, all the traditional brute stuff. I'm not leaving the majority of the deck to gambling. I'm It's a very fatiguish deck under a lot of circumstances. Like especially, like I'll give you a perfect example. If I'm fighting against Dromai, I literally always goes to fatigue. I actually was playing last night on Talishar, and I had a Dromai that I did not do a single point of damage to. They were at 49 health because of 3 Sigil Solaces, and I was down to 7. They conceded because they had nothing left to do.
wow, okay.
That has to feel pretty bad, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 49. Yeah, yeah. I think the great thing about this set is, as you said, people are so excited about kind of what it does for the game in terms of player base, what it offers as well for collectors, which is something that we've needed a set that offers for
Oh
both
yeah.
because we very rarely ever get a set. And I sort of enjoyed Saint's video recently, and I did mention it in my last video that he reckons that Heavy Hitters is the best set since Bar, like Alpha WTR is, Heavy Hitters is his, he reckons is the second best set behind that, which is a massive statement. I know it's hard sometimes because you kind of have that recent memory bias, I think, with a lot of stuff, so it's quite hard, I think. But looking at this set, I've never seen so much hype. I entered when Crew first came out, um, and so I've seen the ups and downs for every set, but I haven't seen such hype for a set. Honestly, in Flesh and Blood, which is obviously for people that enjoy Flesh and Blood, whether you are a collector, a player, is great. And I think being both of it, I think is really good. I think becoming a sort of playing now the game and understanding some of the mechanics, there's still so much to learn that I probably won't ever learn. I enjoy running Katsu. I probably won't change from Katsu just because I want to get really good with it. I think I've been trying different decks when I go to my armories, but obviously I don't put the time in, 250 reps with
In three
this.
weeks, yeah.
Yeah, in
It's a
3
lot.
weeks is I've not even done 250 games of Fab in my life, I think. So that's mad, but I
Well,
think
I'm
that
also
is it.
currently
When
not
you're
employed, so that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you look at the game as a whole, I think the recurring theme is that this is the premier competitive card game right now. We can discuss whether or not, how big the game is in terms of like compared to other TCGs. But in terms of like competitive play, the amount of people that I know that have come from either Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic have come to Fab with their experience, and they've just gone, do you know what? I'm putting everything into Fab because I think it takes to be really good at Fab. I think it would be quite hard to be at the same level with another TCG. I did speak to one of the guys who's ranked second in Poland. He was on the Poland national team because I played him and he absolutely destroyed me. And we were talking about One Piece afterwards, and he said that Fab is the game that he actually puts the time into. You know, he's constantly playing in his like they've got their play test group obviously with the Poland team, but One Piece is the game that if he doesn't want to really not necessarily not pay attention, but if he doesn't want to if he doesn't want a serious game and he wants to have a bit of fun, One Piece is the game that he plays on the side, which is quite interesting because I meet One Piece players because I've started running One Piece events at my LGS, and I mean the price support for One Piece is to a level that I've never seen in any game before. It's
I've actually seen
even if
pretty
you're
similar things too at the LGSs, a couple of the LGSs near me too. I've heard lots of people that
yeah
are Fab players just consider about only playing One Piece just for the fact that the price support is good enough for them to actually be interested in it. But I have
yeah
not actually touched the game yet myself, unfortunately, so I can't speak too much on it.
yeah. I think well yes because you're getting all those reps in with
Yeah.
Rhinar, which it makes sense. I think if you get to a level with Fab, and I suppose it probably becomes quite addictive because Fab is just so competitive. I mean, I'm a competitive person, but for some reason when I'm playing Fab, um, I'm going in with if I can have fun, I'm probably going to lose. As long as I have fun and learn something from every game, which I think I have. It's the different matchups. Um, I learn about myself as a player, what things that I should have done properly. I remember I dishonored a Levia at the
Oh my
call-in,
god.
and yeah, and I was like, I was like, this is amazing, but we were down to one life each, and they started their turn and wiped me out with a I think a 16 attack. But he was like, if you'd done, he was like, I can see you got 100 wins in your hand. He was like, if you played the 100 wins before you played Dishonor, you would have won. But because you were so excited, you were so sort of trigger happy to get that Dishonor out. Um, you didn't think about, you didn't check what I had in hand and think about the blocks. If you'd done the 100 wins first, you would have done me. Because obviously, if they'd have had a bad turn and they couldn't do anything, maybe if I was on a bit more life, obviously, they would have been done at the end of their turn. But all they needed was, just to take me one of those big hits, and that done me. And that was a lesson learned for me, not to kind of. I think there was like 5 minutes left of the game. It was, it was one of those toe-to-toe games where it just, everyone else had packed up and finished their game, and it felt like everyone was watching us because like we were just taking the longest. But that sort of taught me a lot as a player. And then the next game, I pulled it off, not against Levia, but against Kasai, and I won the game because I'd taken from that last game the advice that the player that I played against as well, which really helped. That's one thing that I've noticed playing this game versus others is the willing to help from other players, the friendliness, the you could have done this, you could have done it this, or you could have done that way. Next time, do this. Which I don't, I played Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day. I played One Piece, and Yu-Gi-Oh was just toxic. And One Piece is great. But I think the community side of Fab, I really does think it's something that excels. Sort of compared to a lot of other games. What
Well,
what
I
would
actually
you
have a
say
little.
on that?
Oh, I have a little story that I have to tell on that now. First, I want to say one thing. The Yu-Gi-Oh! I can agree with you about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community to agree, but I still love the game in my heart a little bit. I will play
Yeah.
occasionally here and there, but there is a reason why I steered over to Fab versus playing Yu-Gi-Oh! On a competitive level. And it's not just the pricing and everything. The community is beyond belief amazing. So my first RTN I ever went to, I think it was, or maybe my second, it was a couple hours away. Ethan Von Saint Mansant. I'm sure you've seen him on YouTube once or twice at least. He was I was playing against him, and I was misplaying a ton. Okay, and mind you, this is I, this. I'm not. I'm pretty sure this we were in top four at the time. So or top eight, cut to top eight, whatever it was. I don't know if it was top four or top eight because there wasn't that many people to shop. But I'm playing against him, and this is at the competitive level where we're going grinding for stuff, and he's on stream with me, and he's telling me how I'm misplaying, and this is how I'm supposed to actually like how the actual game is literally played and whatnot. He's literally giving me a tutorial while playing the game at a competitive level. Um,
Yeah,
I don't expect him to do ever do that for me ever again because I'm not a newbie player anymore. But that just shows you though someone that's well enough known in our community giving some like I probably would have died by 20 extra points if he wouldn't have been like no you literally can't do this like this. You might want to think about doing
yeah,
this and next turn or whatever because you got these. This is what your hero's doing and stuff. And I'm just I. I've actually brought that same kind of energy to some new players before. I'll just be like, okay, well, not in an RTN though, unfortunately. But there's been just a regular CC army a couple weeks ago, and there was this Dromite player that was playing against me, and while they're playing the deck, I'm kind of like, okay, hey, buddy next to me, can you look at their hand and help them out and see if they can do anything different than what they're doing? Blah blah blah. Okay, and then afterwards, we went through the whole match like that, where I was just like, I was trying to explain to them value proposition and everything, and then we get towards the end of the game, and once the game ends, I sit down. I'm like, hey, can I see your deck? Okay, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. Literally half the cards in here probably need to go. Why? Because they're blues and yellows, and we're playing a proxy friendly store, so just print out some Tome of the Imperial Flames, and just you'll see why this deck works the way it does, and everything. And just keep mostly redlining. You'll be doing far better because you need to be constantly creating Ash's Dromai. Because there were so many turns you were saying, I can't do anything. I have no Ash. I can't do anything. I have no Ash. So, but I've seen it happen multiple times too, where the community is very open and welcoming to people, and because the skill gap is extremely high for this game, it's on a level of just playing the game, sitting down and playing it for the basics. It's probably the most simplest game I've ever played in my life. But when you're trying to, when you're actually getting to the nitty gritty of how all the interactions work and everything, it gets horrifyingly complicated very fast. And that's something we all have to remember that we were once that player that just didn't know what we were doing.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's what I've got from it as well. The amount of people that have helped me with, as you said, with the step by step going through how I could play better. Um, I at my store we have a really good Katsu player that's really helped me understand, basically what to do, which has helped me. I think I've done my best is 2-2 at my armory, which was the one I did before I went to the call in, which was great. There's and it's the game. When you do win a game, certainly with the my lack of experience anyway, it does feel really special. And I'm not saying like when people are playing thousands and thousands of games a year, every win doesn't but it's sort of different, isn't it? And that's one thing that you mentioned before the video in the notes of us going through that casual side of it versus that competitive side, because there is a big step up.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Obviously, the amount of time that you have to put in is ridiculous. Hats off to people that do play at that level, because especially these events that start at 8 in the morning and they finish at like 9 at night. That's a
the
long old day. That is like, I come from hospitality side of being a chef, working 18-hour days, and I can get through that 18-hour day in a kitchen a lot easier than if I sat there for 10 hours and played cards, because that is just, it does me. Like, I had one day where I played all day and I was like, I'm done, my head hurts. um
mental fatigue of playing
it's
trading card games
Yeah,
all day long is something that nobody understands until they do it themselves. Like
yeah,
I was actually telling some people at one point that I was thinking I need to be working on my diet better, and also going to the gym more often, and just getting my body more physically prepared to play card games. And they were
Yeah,
like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, dude, like sitting here grinding this game, having to think of
yeah,
all the mathematical propositions, and mind you as well, this is when I was playing Icelander too, where you're literally thinking every other turn, every turn after you get them down past like 20 health or something like that. Should I try to kill them this turn? All right, what's the math on this, and then third? And I come from a math
yeah,
background and used to being an engineer beforehand. Boy, numbers fly through your head very fast when you're playing this game if you're trying to win.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's it. And yeah, as you said, if you know, if I said that to people, getting into looking after yourself and that, but that mentally sound side of it, that preparing yourself because it's a very long day. And fair play. I don't think I'll definitely come to events still. Like my LGS has we've got a Pro Quest, which would be great. That's the first time we've ever got one. I think the best they've ever had at my store is a skirmish, like back in 21. But then the player base kind of dropped off. But now we've got like consistent 20 players a week, which is great.
That's
So
awesome.
now we've got a Pro Quest. Yeah, it's good. It's just that you are a sum of the people you surround yourself with. So if you're playing with good players, you'll get better. Players that are running different decks gives you a chance to match up against different decks to see how you do. For obviously, every hero has favorable matchups and ones that they don't want to come against. But if you don't, if you're not getting those reps in, you won't know. And I think that is a big difference. And card knowledge as well. I think when I'm going into a game, I know the names of cards, but I don't necessarily know what they do. I look at them from selling hundreds and thousands of singles,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell you what all the cards do. But playing the game and having an understanding of the whole card pool, like what possibly could they be playing next turn? What could they possibly be running? What could I do? And there's so many things to think about, so many variables. And if you have that experience in terms of the card pool, where you know that you're running Levi, you're playing against Levia, and you think, right, what could they possibly do? And I know that they're probably going to use this and use that, and that is an advantage in itself. So I think anyone can pick up the game and play pretty much, but if you want to be good at it, there's a level to it. But yeah, I think we'll go back to Yu-Gi-Oh because it's a game that we've both played. I haven't played since I ran Six Samurai, Gravekeepers, Gladiator Beasts, like GX era. That was
Yeah.
when I played. I used to play events when I was a kid, which was great. I had fun because I was a kid and I was winning these cool cards and stuff. And then I think Synchros came in and I was okay with that. But after that, I just was like, nah, I can't do this anymore.
I think I fell off when Pendulum started. That's when I was just
Okay,
like
yeah.
so it wasn't it was I was still playing the game through the XYZ era and everything, but I definitely preferred the synchro era over that. And actually, that's a funny thing that you mentioned the synchros too, is because I'm actually looking at possibly playing Edison format sooner or later. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Okay.
Do you know what
I've heard Ruxin talk about it before.
Edison format is 2013 ban list, and that's
Okay.
so anything beyond then isn't allowed. And I used to play Gemini's back then. Those were
Oh yeah.
you remember what those were?
I remember Gemini's, yeah.
Yeah, so I was running a Gemini deck back in the day, and I just like it. I would love to do that once or twice a month in order to be back into just having a game to casually play for, because playing a game casually versus playing a game competitively, it unfortunately does drain the fun factor out of it. Like you were saying, it's like the wins that you get probably are a lot more meaningful for you than they are for me. Like I'm not trying to hype too much on this as a whole, but like about a month and a half ago when I was in Cincinnati, I think I got Hamilton down to like 2 or 4 or something like that in a match versus him, and I didn't win the game, but that felt better than the majority of the wins that I had. I was thinking, oh, I almost beat the ex world champion versus
Yeah.
everyone that I beat throughout the weekend and whatnot. Like the wins really do start to not matter as much because you're just grinding away. but I definitely want to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh again so I can have a casual game to play. Um, Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole, though, for like the current game itself, I'm not as particularly interested in playing on a competitive level or because I don't think there's a casual level for modern Yu-Gi-Oh, unfortunately. Unless you were to have like some LGS is what they'll do is they'll host like speed duel events, or I'm not sure if you're
Yeah,
familiar with. Okay, you know what Speed Duel is. I'll just explain to the audience real fast. Speed Duel is where instead of having five spell and trap zones and monster zones, you have three of each, and you have half the life points. And I'm pretty sure you draw four cards at the start of the game instead of five, and your extra deck is cut in half to some degree. I think it's 7 or 8 cards, one or the other. That's about the only way you'll find people playing Yu-Gi-Oh casually. I feel like these days, and unfortunately this is something that I love that LSS has done. That well, a problem that they rectified. I just can't keep up with the regurgitation of upset every month or two. It gets just to be too
yeah,
much. And I'm glad that Fab is 3 to 4 sets a year. I'm not. I keep forgetting which one it is, but either way, having time to actually breathe and enjoy a meta is amazing. I just can't justify mentally having to put that much mental effort into buying into it, and also the financial effort into buying into a new set every month is just a little overwhelming to me at this point, especially when we've gotten pampered by what LSS does for us.
yeah. I think it's 3 sets this year, unless they change it and add something else in. I think, but 3 to 4 sets is a great amount. It gives you enough time, um, basically not to be rinsing through money every month because there's a new set, but it gives you time to actually appreciate the cards and understand the cards' place in the meta. Not every
Hmm.
card, as soon as it comes out, we understand. Sometimes it takes a little time. And NSS know that. I think they're they're sort of big on the storytelling side of it, and that almost kind of translates to the competitive side of the game, and the sets coming out as well. That there is a story for that player side of things. Like the cards themselves have a story. So I think given that enough time between release is something that very few games do. Obviously, we look at sets games like Yu-Gi-Oh that seem to be releasing a set every couple of weeks, and they'll release like collector sets as well, like the collector rare sets. And then you've kind of got the opposite with games like Sorcery, where which we kind of sort of rolled into there, where they release one main set a year. Do you think with Sorcery, do you think one set a year is enough, or do you think for that game that it is, one is a perfect amount?
So, I've got a lot of thoughts on this, and the one set a year thing does well, it's one main set a year from what I've been hearing
Yeah,
lately, and that they're going to be doing little mini sets in the meantime. Um, if this was any other, like if they keep up the way that they're structuring the booster boxes, it quite possibly could work for a gameplay setting. I'm not going to speak on the collector end at all because I mean I that's a whole different other topic. But the only reason I say this though is because the sets are currently just as big as Fab sets are, but you have to keep in mind though we don't have the red, blue, and yellow pitch of every color of every card right there. So you're
yeah,
looking 3 times the cards in every set for sorcery. I'm pretty sure that the set was almost 400 different unique cards. So
okay,
that if you translate that over to Flesh and Blood standards of unique cards, that is the exact same amount of unique cards pretty much being translated over from 3 sets just into only one. But
yeah, okay, yeah,
the only thing that worries me about that though is will people get sick of the same type of gameplay overall an entire year? That I mean, granted, I don't know what these supplemental little mini sets are going to be housing, so it could be hyper meta changing things, or it could just be little buffs here and there to make decks a slight bit more relevant. But again, though, it's a very up in the air question that I cannot give a straight answer for because I think I need at least a half a year's worth of data to see if people get sick of the game beforehand. That's the problem.
yeah. No, that makes sense. I like the idea of sorcery. I haven't seen it anywhere in the UK at all yet. I know Um, I did the Kickstarter and I sold my bits early on, as I generally do at Kickstarters. Um, but I did look into getting some after quite a few people were commenting on videos saying, "Oh, can you do a sorcery unboxing? Can you talk about sorcery?" And I was like, "Okay, the demand is clearly there," and obviously seeing it in Discords as well. A lot of
Mm.
people really hyped about the game, players and collectors as well, which is good to see. Um, so I tried getting some, but it was by the time I could, it was sold out already. So it'll be
That is
interesting
the
to
one thing that
see.
worries me, though. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that is what worries me as well. Is how if like I heard Rudy mention about he was supposed to be getting some boxes soon or at some point. This was over the last sort of 2 months, but if the game right now, basically, I know most of the big stores in the UK and none of them are running sorcery
Mm.
events or anything. So if sorcery is gonna sort of grow. If it's gonna do one main set a year and then the expansion sets or the mini sets throughout the year to kind of either buff or maybe change the meta to make sure it's not stale. If this is our set for the next whatever many months, if are they gonna print tons more beta, or are we just gonna have to wait until the next mini set or whatever to get any supply?
If we have to wait, that's going to be a huge problem because, like, for locally, I was speaking with one of my LGS owners after I tried contacting, having a friend of my contract distribution. They said they couldn't get it. I was like, okay, it couldn't hurt to see if like they could possibly go through a different distributor. No dice. They said they were having people ask them about sorcery, but they just didn't have the funds before. Well, they didn't have people asking about sorcery before it got released in beta. But
Yeah,
then when beta came out, they were having people ask about it, and by that time, allocations have already been allowed and everything. And in my entire city, there's not a single LGS that has any sorcery product whatsoever. Besides, I'm sorry, there's none that are doing organized play at all, and there's one LGS that has it, and it's kind of the like I don't know how to say it. It's the store is more of a sports store than anything. So
okay,
they just buy things because they're also a mini distributor themselves. They buy something of everything, but they're also price gouging a little bit too. Beyond
yeah,
that, though, the only LGS that is running anything related to sorcery events is an hour and 18 minutes away from me driving. And I went to their demo event just to learn the game better and whatnot, but without that's the only thing that steered me away. I wanted to try to play sorcery more, and a friend of mine over the discords, he even showed me like the game's definitely growing in popularity because they made these mini of these events that will rank you up to the Cortesian Cup, I think it is, and they're already sold out. Like, but
okay, yeah,
I think they capped them at like 50 people or something like that. But that shows that there's some interest. Definitely, 50 people isn't a small number for a game that just launched. Because I'm
yeah,
assuming some people have to travel, and the price support's pretty decent on it. But it's nothing fantastically amazing that you're going to have to take off a couple of days of work unless you actually like the game in the first place. But again, though, if LGSs themselves can't get the product itself to be able to put on their shelves or be able to do anything with LP, that in itself is going to be a major red flag problem for the game itself because I don't know. And the other side of it too is if they just
yeah,
print more beta, then it's gonna we're gonna like we have a lot of people that are happy about the collector side of this game, but then they'll how that goes when they hit the print burr
yeah,
button,
yeah.
can't satisfy everyone.
It's Yeah, it's a hard one. I think sorcery is almost the way I look at it is almost going to kind of operate in its own sort of realm. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm interested. I think if I can get product at some point for whatever they do, I'll get some on the channel. If my LGS is very like my main LGS near me, they're very like they won't stock anything unless they're running events, and they won't run events unless they have a consistent player base turn up for weeks on weeks, because they're not they've got every single day and every single night there's multiple events for different TCGs and RPGs
Wow.
running. So they've got last year they acquired a bigger store so they can fit, I think max capacity is about 100 on 2 floors. um so but they are like One Piece. I wanted to get them involved in. They were like, right, at the moment, technically, we can't actually get any products until September. No store can. If you didn't order, I think OPO 7 was like you had to order by 2nd of December, and then OPO 8 you had to do by the end of January or something like that. So that's you have to order like 9 months in advance. So any store that wants to do One Piece now, they've now missed the boat on OPO 8, so they'll have to wait until next year maybe, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Because no product sits on shelves after release. It's release comes out, everything's already been allocated to people because they've already pre-ordered all of the stock. Some stores will keep some for events and stuff. So we've had consistent player base. I started Discord and we've got like 35 in the Discord now. People will travel just to play the game, and there's nothing, there's no price support at the moment. It's literally just bring a deck if you've got one, bring your playmat or whatever, and just play with people. And we have consistent numbers turn up for that, like 20 plus a week. So we will get tournament packs from March. Yeah, it's mad. There's nothing on the line here. There's nothing. And people are coming on a Monday night to play. One guy, he actually comes from a different island to come over to play One Piece, which is, he gets the ferry over. So he doesn't get home till like midnight. But he's like, I just want to play One Piece in person. Like, there's nowhere on my island that does it. So it's, I mean, One Piece, when I look at it, is the only game I can see on a comparable level is in terms of sheer size is Pokemon right now. I think of the Pokemon boom because I was right in the middle of it, and One Piece is pretty much at that level. But as you said with Sorcery, if we can't get product, that's a red flag. And I think with One Piece, stores will drop the game if they can't get product. Players will just drop it and go, right, I'm going to go play a game where I can actually even buy a deck. So there's like a happy medium here for games where, some collectors want there to be no supply because they're like, right, singles prices are going to climb. I'm going to make my money. But as we know, games will die if there's no players. So there is like a happy medium there that very, very few games, if any, can get it right. And I think the steps that games like Flesh and Blood have done, LSS have definitely they've adjusted the way they do things, and I think a lot of people are starting to coin the term Fab 3.0 now for kind of what they're doing, which makes sense. I think I could see LSS and James calling it Fab 3.0. It definitely does feel like a resurgence with like heavy hitters and onwards. So I'm excited to kind of see what happens with that. We'll talk about Cryptic because you mentioned that in before. So I have no clue what the game is. So if you kind of just want to sort of talk about that.
So actually, this is a perfect way to segue into the game and whatnot. Cryptic is a lot like playing Magic, where you summon citizens to your field to fight for you. Have you ever played Kaijudo as well, by the way?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so there'll be an easy way to explain this. You start the game off by, unlike other games, you start the game by having one health point, but for both players, and that's it. But you start the game off putting 6 cards in front of you, and they're basically like shield walls, essentially. Like Magic, you summon creatures or citizens in this case to fight for you. But the difference between Magic and this game is there's no this is what I call this game a nice intertwine between Fab and Magic, because every card in the game can be used basically as a land, and so you can slap it down as a land of whatever color. Well, it goes into your soul row as whatever color of soul, and you use soul energy in order to play citizens or to also activate spells or counters and things along that nature. You got various keywords on the text like Ravenous, where you can attack multiple things on I can't remember the name of it for some reason. Multiple of your blocking cards at the same time, or Eager, so you can basically bypass summon sickness and whatnot. So the gameplay for the game is actually pretty fantastic, I think. I'd give it a solid 7 or 8 out of 10 on gameplay.
Okay.
But the problem with the game, and this is what I'm really glad Fab didn't do as well too, is they've decided to experiment too much. It feels like where they went from the Kickstarter having only thing was the pretty much two types of chases where there's these cards called riddles where the white text versions are one per case, which was one per 6 boxes at the time, and the whole card would be written in the cryptic language of the game. So they created their own
Okay.
language for the game, which is cool, and they got lore behind it as well and everything, which is nice. But and then the other chase was one per master case. There was a green text card, which cool. Set then they had the basically what was the beta release of it, where they added a couple other changes, where they had a few other a few they removed the green text and then they added in some other chase cards like a couple serialized cards and stuff like that, which was a decent thing. Unfortunately, the player base wasn't big enough for the beta to get fully absorbed, but then they tried to. This is what I mean by experimenting too much. Okay, and I wanted to segue into why what I think it makes a healthy balance for a game, and I'm hoping the Cryptic learns from their mistakes. How many chases they added. So they went actually two.
I think this might have frozen for some reason. Your screen. Oh, there we are. You back? It froze for some reason.
Yeah. So as we were describing, like saying before, you need to appeal to both the collectors and the players in games. And it felt like almost like they had appeased a little bit too much to the collector end and made things far too collectible, if you know what I'm saying. And then it's like
Yeah.
almost to the point where it's like, oh, there's 70 different cards you can collect in this set now that are quote unquote chase rares, and it kind of
Yeah.
diluted
It's
the.
too many.
Yeah, so there definitely has to be a healthy balance for games, and I'm glad that like I like the fact that we're actually like seeing cold foil legendaries for Flesh and Blood feel like they're actually worth something now because I don't know how much heavy hitters you've opened. I'm certainly sitting at 21 boxes I've opened and I've pulled two cold foil legendaries so far.
Yeah. I've opened 17 and I pulled one cold foil
Yeah.
legendary.
Yep, I've pulled three marbles. I pulled one fable by some chance, but it's we still got a good collector aspect. We got the cold foils, we got the marbles, and then I'm pretty sure you mentioned this in your last video, but making the Fable only cold foil actually I think is a really good step in the positive direction
Yeah.
because Uprising's release I participated in an SCG con for that, and on the sealed event, I pulled the Blood of Drakai rainbow foil. I was like so excited. I'm like, wow, I pulled the Fable, the 1 in 40 box
Yeah.
card. Yes, yeah, hype, hype. Just pay for the whole weekend or something like that. They're like $30 right now, but also the
Yeah.
card's trash. To be honest with you too, so
Yeah.
that's a factor. But my whole thing point of wanting to bring up Cryptic was if anyone's never checked out the game, it's worth checking out. But I'm also advising you that they have not made some moves in the bad direction, but I think that their next set will go in positive directions as well. But again, though, this is an example of when a TCG is trying to do too much, and versus other games trying to sometimes dampen it down a little too low. There needs to be a healthy balance in between everything where you have the collectors that are satisfied and the players definitely can still play the game and everything's accessible at the same time too without crazy prices for boxes like One Piece was for a while there.
Yeah. I think if everything is special, nothing is special. So there's a happy medium there that you need with games, and I think this heavy hitters set is a really good step in the right direction by having the cold foil fabled. Cold foil legendaries
Can you
actually feel
still hear
special
me? Because
again
you're
now.
cutting in and out a little bit on me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Your video's frozen, but I think Discord might be lagging now. Sometimes if the call's
Yeah,
been going on too long, it just basically destroys it. Um,
yeah.
I'll edit some of
You're
that
back
out. It's
now.
not a problem.
Yep, you're back now.
But yeah, I think that's such a good step in the right direction. I'm interested to see now what they do with the next set if they continue with this. Hopefully, we don't revert back to previous sets where getting the rainbow foil fabled is just it doesn't feel special because you realize just how useless it is and how cheap it is as well. I'm not saying
How
there's
common?
an
Yeah.
argument to be had about how fables should always be playable. They shouldn't be. Um, Also, getting a landmark was a really great thing. We haven't had one since Caution. I know a lot of people wanted one, so that was also good. A
I
great
won't
step in the right
deny though.
direction.
I'm excited for a new landmark, but I was not excited for the fact though that it is UPF only landmark because I mean I
Yeah,
don't really play UPF all that much myself, and seeing a card that is only for a small niche, it was slightly disappointing. But it is a fantastic looking card. I had to stare at it for quite a while after I pulled it for the first time.
yeah. I managed to pull it as well, thankfully, and it's a stunning card. And it's kind of interesting that they did that for UPF. I know that they've mentioned this year that they're going to do some social play kits and more UPF stuff. So I'm interested to see if that's going to tie in with the arena being a card that's kind of centered around that, or if it is just they did a landmark, they didn't want it to be stupidly expensive, so they were just like, right, it's not going to be mad at launch because it's not playable in CC, but it could potentially go up in the future with obviously UPF gaining traction and being more popular.
Yeah, definitely. You have you played UPF by the way?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
It's an interesting experience. There's a lot of politics that happen while playing UPF, and especially if you're sitting down at the table and you got a friend to your left and two enemies to you, across from you. That things can definitely get dicey real quick, but it's definitely a fun format to play, and I definitely highly recommend trying it out sometime. It is probably one of the most casual forms of Fab you will actually play beyond
Yeah,
Commoner.
yeah. I think my OGS has mentioned about Dirt before. I think before the XP Elo change thing, everyone was trying to grind their XP, so it was always CC. But I think now the XP doesn't mean so much anymore. I think people will start playing a little bit more sealed events. We'll do UPF a little bit, which would be great to kind of do a little bit more than CC at the store.
Yeah, I can imagine for a more casual player that has to be a breath of fresh air, considering that I personally, when I'm playing against other people that aren't as competitive, I prefer to play draft or sealed just for the fact that the playing ground is leveled then at that point, and then I don't have access to another couple thousand cards that they don't just because they're just starting off playing the game. I mean, my card knowledge is a lot better than other people's, but I can also, it's draft is draft, and you're up
Yeah,
to the gods there sometimes.
yeah. I think that's why I enjoyed doing it at the call in because it was kind of giving me an experience that with most people on a level playing field to an extent. Obviously, some people would research the set a lot more and watching a lot of sort of deck tech videos on sealed and draft. Of course, that's going to happen. I think it's still a competitive event, but for the most part, it's going to be down to kind of what card pool you get. I know when I did the first one for the call in, um, I got the player opposite to me uh, just went, I'm really sorry, but you've just got such a bad card pool. Like, I've never. Theirs was very even. I think it was like 17. They had 17 Brute, 17 Warrior, um, and 17. What was the other? What was the other class in heavy hitters?
Guardian.
Guardian, yeah. Whereas I had it's kind of skewed in different ways, but it wasn't favorable to any of the equipment that I had or any of. So it was kind of like they basically went, "I'm really sorry. I, I don't know what I would do with this if I was you." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant! This is the first time I've done this, so this really helps." Not that if I had the right cards, that made any more sense to me, honestly. But it was still a fun experience. It's definitely something different. And I'd definitely like to do that a lot more. And I think that's why it kind of ties in with the fact that I was, as a collector before I became a sort of like a business, really. I did kind of go heavy on, I'd always open over 20 cases of each set, and I kept 20 cases of each set as well in storage. And I know now, going back in the future, that I'll be able to draft, WTR, and I'll have fun with friends, or Arcane Rising, for instance, or Toa or Monarch. Um, so yeah, that'll be an experience now that I can actually play the game
Hmm.
to a level, to an extent. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see what this year brings. We're coming to the end of this, but I want to kind of finish on what do you think Fab could do this year that do you think that they should? If like you were in charge, and you could kind of do what you want, what would you want to do?
What I would do, honestly, if I was in charge of the Fab, is I don't know what the release schedule is or anything like that, but the one thing I would do above all else is I would make sure the next set that is released is not the all arcane set that James White has been talking about. That I think would be probably one of the best things for marketing strategies because two reasons I say this. Arc Arcane all arcane set would be just like an all mechanologist set where people didn't have a good reception of bright lights for the draft and everything,
Yeah,
and the draft and the sealed events where I don't unless you like Wizards as a player, you're not going to enjoy the set that much. I think that we do after having such a great banger of a set, the last thing we need is a complete bomb. But also, I think that the meta needs a little bit of a break from Arcane and Wizards in general because there gets to be a lot of hate on the magic side of things at times and everything. Like, I'm sure you know how many people don't like to see a Kano sit next to them and
yeah.
whatnot.
No one, no one likes Kano.
I don't mind playing against Kano actually though. My win rate is pretty decent against him, but I'm also a wizard player myself because I used to play Icelander, so I know how wizards operate. Um, well, to the maximum degree you can predict wizards operate, and that's the unfortunate part. But Icelander, nobody liked her whatsoever, ever, unless you were playing her pretty much. And I think that we just need a little bit more of a break for before we see a little bit more wizard madness come back into the game. That would be that on top of just keeping like I think heavy hitters was great the way the set went with the cold foil fable only, and we honestly if we only had our chases be Marvel heroes other than the cold foil legendaries, I think it would be perfect for at least another set or two. I mean, granted, if there is something even more incredible to put out there like Marvel Angels were or Marvel Dragons, go ahead and do that. But just just keep things playable, keep the supplemental sets just gone, keep doing the expansion slots instead, and I'm a wizard player. I want to see no arcane set as soon as possible, please. But just a little bit of breath of fresh air before we scare people off that just came back to the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one there. As you said, a lot of people have just come to the game. I saw a lot of people at Liverpool calling that spoke to me and said they left when Monarch came out,
Mm.
or they left when like Everfest came out, and they're back now. They've enjoyed heavy hitters, and it would be a shame to for them just to leave straight
Yeah.
after. I think that the next set. I've said it before. I think the next set will be Mysteria based. So I'm thinking that we could get adult Benji. We could get like maybe a Shadow Ninja. Someone's mentioned about like Lightning Ninja sort of thing, which would be quite interested. I think they could do another landmark for the Fabled. It'd be something like a sort of Seek Horizon kind of card. Something in line with obviously the Japanese release is coming out as well. Similar. I think the next set is June, and I think the Japanese release is May. So I'm interested to see what they do. I'm actually generally really excited. For me, like, obviously I have preference to what I'd like them to do. I'd like to see this next set be that, but at the same time, if they don't, I'm not going to be too bothered. I think them bright lights was them trying an all one class set, and I think they won't do that again until they're kind of confident that there's enough variety.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, I talked to some people and they thought bright lights was the best set Fab have ever made. And then I'll talk to 50 other people and say they hated it. So
Anyone that
and I
likes
didn't
Dash
draft it,
loved bright.
thankfully.
Everyone that likes Dash
Yeah,
loved bright lights because it's like, oh, we get to
yeah,
do more of what we love doing. But pretty much
yeah.
everyone else that didn't like, I
Hated it.
didn't, I didn't mind the set as a whole per se. I didn't hate the set, but I hate the draft experience because like, you know, you said you didn't draft it. So I'll just say this: there was one huge flaw in the set. There was multiple items in some packs, so sometimes you'd have people just literally shoving you on their last pick of the draft of that pack. Just here's a zero block item that you don't want, and the set was basically a lot of it was Teklo fatigue, so you'd have to throw these cards in your deck anyways, or else you're gonna get fatigued. And now you got 7 blocks in your deck, so it just
Yeah,
didn't feel good. It
yeah.
was,
I don't think they'll make that same mistake again.
yeah.
I think the steps they've done and they've said, we've seen over these last couple of months, it doesn't seem like something they'd go back on now. I think we're heading in the right direction. They've obviously expanded now. They've probably got enough people that are sitting down and sort of looking at where the game could go in the journey. I mean, we hope that the game's going to continue for 5, 10, 15, however long
Well, I sure hope so
years.
too. I love it. I've loved playing it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing. This game is really special for. I talk to players and collectors of other games, and I know I speak to Magic players and Yu-Gi-Oh players, and they play the game, but they don't like the game.
Hmm.
They've got such an expensive deck. They're too far in. But when I talk to Fab players, they're just Fab players and collectors are so passionate, which is great to see. I think um, I got in because of the art, and now I've got giant store banners behind me that are a little bit too big now. But it's great, and I think that's the game. So, thank you for coming on this evening. It was a great evening for me. It's daytime for you still.
Yeah, it's about to be towards the evening for me over here soon.
Yeah,
But it was great speaking with you. Thank you for inviting me on your little show here, and hopefully we'll do this again in the next couple months or so.
100%. It'd be nice to circle back, um, and kind of go through what we spoke about before and kind of what changes we've seen with the TCGs that we talked about. So thank you all for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. There'll be a link in the description below to your socials as well, so you can check it out. And have a great day.
Have a great one as well.
Bye.
Bye.